You see, there's so many times in our lives where we can't see what God is doing. Isn't there? Aren't there times like that? I mean, can't you think of moments in your past? Maybe you're going through one of those moments right now where you've got all the information, you see all the pieces, but you can't quite wrestle down what's going on. What's God doing with this? What's He trying to accomplish? What does all this mean? I thought it was meaning this, but now it feels like it's something totally different. I mean, this happens to us all the time in our lives. It was in this moment with those guys. I love the picture too, is they're trying to make sense of this. They're trying to figure this out on their own. And who's with them on the road? They didn't know it was Him, but He was right there, right? Jesus is right there. And they're still trying to figure out, work things out, sort things through. And all they need to do is stop and pay attention to Him. For us, I mean, when we find ourselves in moments like this, what do? Don't we want to try to sort it out? I mean, we've got tools too. I mean, we use my example of the hippopotamus. Let's get back to the hippopotamus in the room. Who do that? Now, I was like, at one of those moments, scratching my head, what does this mean? And you know what you can do today? You can Google it, right? And so it was very easy for me. I was like, I don't understand this. I don't know. And it really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the poem means. That's what I realized. That's what I was struggling with all night. I was like, I got to figure out how this poem fits in with my sermon, because obviously God wanted me to share this because of how He did it, right? But here's the point. The point wasn't what the poem said. The point was, what was the point? The point was sometimes we're not going to understand, and it's going to force us beyond ourselves for assistance, right? And so for us, as we live our lives on this earth, there will be moments where things happen, events take place, things work out in ways that we don't see coming and we can't make sense of. And the question for us as Christians, what do we do? How do we handle it when we find ourselves in situations like that? I believe that our first instinct is to try to figure it out for ourselves, to rack our brains, to pound our head against the wall, to think through it, to work through it. When in actuality, God is calling us and encouraging us and even commanding us to stop and ask. Just like those two men were going down the road to Emmaus and Jesus was alongside them the whole time and they didn't realize it, I believe that as we go through those moments in our lives where we cannot understand, we don't see, and we can't figure out what's taking place, chances are Jesus is right beside us. Amen? And we can ignore that it's Him, we can be kept from seeing Him, or we can pick our heads up and pay attention. And so I want to end with just these three things. Three things for us as we find ourselves in these moments. The first thing we can do is look for Jesus. Look for Jesus. You got all three answers all at once. It's going to take the drama away from my message, but that's okay, right? Look for Jesus. He's right there. Ask the question, what could He be doing through this? What is He trying to do in my life, the lives of people around us? If this is a plan that's bigger than me, it's beyond just what I am, what might God be doing? Second, we can ask for His Spirit. This is like acknowledging the fact that I can't figure this out for myself and I need some help. And when we find ourselves trying to spiritually discern the things of God, God has given us the gift of His Spirit to assist us. So instead of trying to figure it out for yourselves, just stop and ask for His Spirit. I mean, in your prayer, in your life, it's so easy to say, God, I don't get this. I don't know what's going on. I can't handle this. I need your help. Fill me with your Spirit that I can understand. In that moment, maybe you will. In that moment, maybe you won't. But hey, it doesn't hurt to ask. So ask. He's given us His Spirit. He's present with us. Ask that He work in your life. Third and finally, most important, trust God's power. I mean, if we think back to the two travelers on the road to Emmaus, if we think back just in that day, in that moment of living under the reality of Good Friday, but not understanding the magnitude of Easter yet, I mean, that was a huge shift for them. It's kind of ruined for us because we know Easter. We know how it worked out. We knew that Good Friday had to happen in order for Easter to come. But for them, they were just like, this doesn't make sense. Jesus died. He was supposed to redeem Israel. He was going to be the king. He was going to do all this stuff. But I watched Him die with my own eyes. I mean, can you imagine how much confusion was existing in their lives at that moment? And then to make matters worse, I mean, they didn't really understand Easter when it first happened. It just caused confusion. Those women left afraid. They didn't know what it meant. God's plan, God's power is so much bigger than what we just see right in front of us. And for us today, we finally, 2,000 years later, have the perspective of Good Friday and Easter. We see how it all fits together. We know that there's no empty grave without a cross. There's no victory unless there's first death. But in that moment, they didn't see it. And that's why it requires us to trust in a power greater than our own. Folks, there will be times in your life where you're going to have all the information, you're going to have all the pieces, but you're not going to know how it fits together. It's going to cause doubt. It's going to cause confusion. You're going to be in pain. You're going to hurt. Don't you feel uplifted by Pastor Troy right now? Right? But you know what? It's precisely in those moments, that God is calling us. Not to keep our heads down, looking sad, but instead, pick our heads up and look for Him. Jesus could be right beside you. He has given you His Spirit, and God is working in ways that are bigger than anything you can hope for or imagine in your own life. Amen?